You have to understand that the soul of the Talmud is Zohar, and the soul of Zohar is Kabbalah, the occultism or sorcery, as I refer to it. Now, this particular book, it doesn't speak against it. It only explains what it is, what the secret doctrine is. And here in the preface, it actually speaks of the secret tradition in Israel, together with some account of the manner in which it influenced Christian scholarship in Europe during 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. It seems like this is plot that is not new. This has been pre-planned long time ago.
They've been infiltrating Christian churches and universities and organizations for centuries.
Exactly.
To change the gospel.
To change the gospel and completely put a virus in Christianity. I call that a virus, leaven of the Pharisees. And today's Christianity, especially here in America, has a virus. And
say that again?
Put a virus in Christianity. I call that a virus. Put a virus in Christianity. I call that a virus.
Are you for real?
Berean Scholar. Berean Scholar. Berean Scholar. Waking up the people of the Most High. I got the knowledge to destroy the lies. DNA history, open eyes. Walk into the darkness and turn on the lights. Wake up, 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 wake up.
Israel is God's chosen people, always have been God's chosen people, always will be God's chosen people.
In my last video, I walked through Bethlehem's walled-off streets and met Palestinian Christians fighting to stay on their land. But I kept thinking about how some of Israel's biggest supporters back home are not necessarily American Jews, but evangelical Christians.
What if there was a plot to plant tares and deception in the core of Christianity? What if I told you that the master plan was to deceive those who called themselves believers? What if a group of people hated the Messiah so much that their goal was to make sure those who thought they were following him were deceived to reject him? If these questions cause you to think, well, you might need to watch and research this next video.
Just take a minute and introduce yourself to our audience that have never seen your program.
We began about, 7, 8 years ago, I guess, something like that. Forget exact date as far as when we actually started. We started off as a teaching ministry, but very pro-Zionist. I come from a Jewish background. Both my parents were Jews. They were non-practicing Jews, but I still come from that background. I'd given my life to Christ when I was 8 years old, and an event that when my mother visited a church with a friend, she never went back again. But nonetheless,
One-time visit. And you were 8 years old, and you got saved on one visit to a church?
At one visit, exactly.
Wow.
I still, though, even though I believe the Lord Jesus Christ as Savior, I was still very much a pro-Zionist type believer, looking at the scriptures more from the Schofield type glasses. And so even as we began from ministry into the news aspect of things to cover more things, mainly looking at the geopolitical spectrum from more of a biblical aspect. And we really grew very rapidly in popularity with this program, and always from my own heart, very sincere in what I believed and very passionate about it. Survived a suicide bombing in Israel in 2004 by the grace of God. But as we built the ministry there, then things began to change. And my wife first began to notice a lot of things, and she had me read one book called The Holocaust Victims Accused, which really was Jewish rabbis talking about what they went through and during the Holocaust, and how it was the Zionist leaders that were turning their backs on them. And how it was the Zionist leaders that were turning their backs on them and allowing other Jews to go to the Holocaust camps and things like that. That really began to wake me up. And
did you read the Transfer Agreement by Edwin Black?
Yes.
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 Yes, also read that as well.
Was that an eye-opener?
Yes, it indeed was, because it proved to us that Hitler was actually Zionist, which was a total surprise, that he cooperated with Zionist leaders.
Yes, Adolf Hitler worked with the Zionists.
Right.
I don't know, would you say he was a Zionist?
Well, he worked with them.
He cooperated with them, he helped them.
Right, and they have a coin of commemoration, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes,
Yes.
and so the early Zionists found a way to work with Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. The Third Reich actually contributed millions of dollars to the Zionist movement to subsidize the Zionist infiltration of Palestine.
That's right. We can say that Hitler built the State of Israel, helped to build the State of Israel.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Well, we first started bringing that information out, Rick, on our broadcast because the more I would get shocked, the more I would bring out. And of course, the Syrian conflict also was a contributing factor, because as we investigated things from a news fact, we began to recognize all the inconsistencies with mainstream media. So that was also turning us. But when I first published about what was happening during the Holocaust, with the Jewish people actually allowing the deaths of other Jewish people just so that they could have numbers in this. I had a good friend of mine who is, his whole family, his background is Mossad in Israel, and he wrote me and he said, "Steve, you've got to let this go. That's water under the bridge." He said, "I know it's true. The documents are there. We know it's true. It's written by rabbis. We know all this. These are factual information." But he said, "My own family actually helped finance the Stern Gang."
The Stern Gang.
Yes.
And the Stern Gang was a Jewish Zionist terrorist organization run by Menachem Begin.
Yes.
Which was responsible for blowing up the King David Hotel and murdering a lot of innocent Arabs.
Exactly, exactly.
And he ended up becoming the prime minister.
Yes, he did. And oddly enough, you know, there were different things too, Rick, in my own past that would come to my mind that I'd heard. Like when I lived in Israel in 2004, my roommate there was an Israeli soldier. He would come up, he was from Beersheba. He'd been injured in an accident, but he would tell me how that they would target practice on Palestinians. And as
target practice?
Target practice. And I specifically asked him, you know, Iran, that's how we called his name, Iran. I said, Iran, I said, do you literally, I mean, okay, you target practice, but I said, did you actually kill any? He said, I've killed 3. And he was, I don't know if he was really ashamed of it or what it was, but he was confessing these things to me. And as a believer of Jesus Christ, this bothered me, but yet I still suppressed those type things. And
Ben Gurion was quoted as saying, "We saw the Palestinians as donkeys."
Oh, it's worse than that, Rick. I mean, I also, because of being of a Jewish background, I went deeper into my just searching roots even as a believer. I went in, I got more involved with the Chabad organization. I would visit rabbis and then built friendships with them. I actually became a member of the Chabad organization for more than 20 years.
You were a member?
Well, it's kind of like joining a church, you know. You just, next thing you know, you just sign the thing that you have joined. It's not like some part of the elite sect of the Chabad organization. But we had very strong ties with them, and we would go, not all the time going to the synagogue and stuff, but I had business relationships with them because of the moving business we owned. We had a lot of relationships with the rabbis throughout South Florida, Northwest Florida as well. And the deeper you get into the circles like this, the more you begin to learn the way Jewish people actually think. And of course, living in Israel, you learn that as well. And as far as a goyim, a Gentile, they're very much looked down upon. When you mention like a donkey, I can't tell you how many times I've sat there with doctors and lawyers just being friends, and then they forget that I'm an actual believer. In some cases, they didn't even know I was a believer. Maybe I didn't say anything to them at the time. And they would say, "Steve, that's just Gentiles. What are you worried about the Gentiles for? You know, they're going to be our slaves one day." And things like this just always stuck in the back of my mind.
They openly talk about Gentiles being slaves?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've got letters, Rick. I can show you letters from
Is Zionism racist?
Yes, Zionism is definitely racist, but it doesn't make all the Jewish people that way.
Yes, I
Right.
absolutely agree. Those who
But Zionism
hold
as
to
a
Zionism,
principle,
Zionism is based on racial superiority.
absolutely. As far as
So if a person is a Gentile, non-Jew, and they criticize Zionism, not Jewish people, if they criticize Zionism, then they get labeled as anti-Semitic. But if a Jew criticizes Zionism, he or she is labeled as self-hating Jew.
yes,
That's the way this game works?
exactly how it works.
All right.
And the anti-Semitism is a propaganda. That's all it really is. That's
Hey,
right.
Yana, what about you? What's your background? Steve, you were born in Alabama, Florida, up in the Panhandle.
I used to say my mother was kind enough to take me to a regular hospital instead of being born in the backwoods. So
All right.
I got born in Northwest Florida.
All right. How about you?
Well, I'm originally from East Europe, former Czechoslovakia, and I came to Christ in 2010. My background is that I'm from kind of mixed household. My mother was not Jewish. She was a Gentile. So in Israel, they consider me a Gentile. They don't consider people whose father is Jew, they don't consider them Jewish. So I am labeled often as anti-Semitic when I speak
So
out.
he's self-hating Jew and you're anti-Semitic.
That's right.
Is that according to your enemies?
According to our
Exactly.
enemies. That's
Okay.
right. All because we just bring to light the teachings of Judaism, which while in Israel, of course, when you're there, you start noticing things. But because of our Zionist approach to prophecy and to Bible in general, and we were in a circle of Zionist Christians, I started to research a lot Jewish roots and Jewishness, and I wanted to know what it is that Judaism is about. What does Judaism believe? So I started to study their writings, and their writings include Talmud, Zohar, Kabbalah, Shulchan Aruch, which is their Jewish law, or it's called Halakha. And I started to expound on, listen to a lot of teachings by rabbi. I would open up a lot of videos that Chabad rabbi would specifically teach on Halakha and on Talmud and explain certain things. And I started to see that there is a huge discrepancy between Christianity and Judaism, that Christianity has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. Christianity has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. Judeo-Christianity, as often as referred to, is oxymoron statement. It's diametrically opposed. And I started to see that basically they actually are the enemies of Christianity.
Truth, we got some truth out finally. People are gonna know some truths.
So I could not logically understand.
And Judaism is not biblical, even by Old Testament standards.
That's correct.
God did not create Judaism.
Exactly. Judaism as we know it today is basically Pharisaism. Judaism is not true faith. It's not nothing that God has given.
It's what Jesus condemned.
Exactly.
right.
So I started to notice that we have the same battles today as first century Christians, as apostles, and that our enemies are the same enemies as enemies of Jesus. And it was the Pharisees with their oral law. You see a lot of Christians today, especially in Zionist circles, they think that Judaism is about Old Testament, that Judaism is just the Old Testament. All they believe, the Jews, they just believe the Moses law and they practice the law of Moses. They have 613 commandments. Most of these Christians are not familiar with the Talmud, Zohar and Kabbalah, and where this 613 mitzvot comes from and what they're all about. So I started to study what they're about and what the Talmud teaches, and I noticed that there is actually a plan, there is a plot, and that's a plot against Christianity. And I could not logically understand why would Christian leaders form friendships with Jewish rabbis.
Take the
Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
A partnership between Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Friends of Zion Museum led to the unprecedented visit.
It's the first time in history the State of Israel has officially partnered with 1,000 strategic pastors to commission them as ambassadors to combat anti-Semitism and reach the youth of their generation.
Dr. Mike Evans says Israel's fight is not just on the battlefield.
Right now there's an ideological war that Israel's losing. So they need the evangelicals, they need the Zionists to fight an ideological war.
One of the goals of this gathering is to strengthen Christian support during a time of growing global anti-Semitism. They say the pulpit must speak louder than the propaganda.
Why would Christian leaders form friendships with Jewish rabbis?
Take the next several minutes and summarize what is this plan that you've discerned?
Well, at first, let me bring you one of the books here, The Secret Doctrine in Israel by Waite, W-A-I-T-E. This is a book.
We can put this on the screen.
Right.
There it is right there. That's the book, and Secret Doctrine in Israel, A.E. Waite. And
Yes.
I think it was written in 1909, 1905, something like that.
Yes, and what it explains is the basically secret doctrine of the Zohar, what is behind Zohar, and you have to understand that the soul of the Talmud is Zohar, and the soul of Zohar is Kabbalah, the occultism or sorcery, as I refer to it. Now, this particular book, it doesn't speak against it. It only explains what it is, what the secret doctrine is. And here in a preface, it actually speaks of the secret tradition in Israel, together with some account of the manner in which it influenced Christian scholarship in Europe during 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. It seems like this is plot that is not new. This has been pre-planned long time ago.
They've been infiltrating Christian churches and universities and organizations for centuries.
Exactly.
To change the gospel.
To change the gospel and completely put a virus in Christianity. I call that a virus, leaven of the Pharisees. Mm-hmm. And today's Christianity, especially here in America, has a virus. And we have to identify what the virus is. But it's basically the same problem as Apostle Paul has. It's a Judaizing of Christianity, but they also brought in occultic practices. But anyway, as far as I was studying this, I came to a really shocking information. And here on this page, I highlighted it. Well, you're going to find what is actual secret doctrine of the Zohar. It's not pretty. I don't really recommend that people who are not strong in faith or it's right. A book for the research, for the purpose of researching what the doctrine of actual Kabbalah, Zohar, and Talmud is, what Judaism is about, because once you understand what Judaism is about, you start understanding that these bridges that Christian ministers are making with Pharisees or rabbis today, those are very dangerous bridges.
Yes.
And on one side, it's always Christians that submit to the Jews. It's always Christians that have to agree not to preach Jesus to Jews. You see, the Jews, they don't compromise. They will never compromise what they believe. But the Christians are ready to compromise. And why? Because they have wolves for teachers.
Yes.
Who have actually made bridges with the Pharisees, the enemy of Christ. But in this particular book, I just want to read you a little bit what got me understanding what the plot is against Christianity. It says here, according to the Midrash Talpigoth, the Messiah will bring eternal peace, which of course was understood by the Israelites as peace for Israel, plus that which may follow extermination for all who did not enter by conversion into the house of Jacob. So
extermination?
Yes. So basically what they teach is that if Gentiles or Christians do not attach themselves to the Jews, they will be exterminated. And of course, we are well known for our Noahide laws, that we brought this to a light. So then you go to Talmud and you start reading what is the plan for Gentiles. You see, Judaism is a two-tier system. Judaism puts the wall of partition back. It's the Jews and non-Jews. And according to Judaism, non-Jews are different species. They are not, they're humans, but they're not at a level of the Jews. Jews are supposedly divine. They're the light of the world. They're the chosen. They have life of Hashem inside of them. That's the way they explain life of God inside. And the Gentiles, they can never achieve it. They're different species. They're on animalistic level. And the only way for Gentiles to make it to the world to come is to attach themselves to the Jews. And how do they do that? Well, through the Noahide laws, 7 Noahide laws.
What percentage of Jews in the world believe that trash?
Well, this is an interesting question, Steve. You did research on percentage.
I did a little bit of a research because I know that when we got attacked for the bringing out the Noahide laws, it was suggested that only a small percentage, about 2% of radical Jews in Israel actually believe this. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. But even if it were a small percentage, you have to keep in mind it's that percentage that control the world governments. But just for an example, 5% of Jews all over the world globally are Hasidic, which are all Talmudist. But the number continues to go up because in the Hasidic, after you go outside the Hasidic, then we have what we call Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox. That makes up about 30% of all the Jews worldwide. So about 30% of the Jews worldwide are hardcore, and maybe 15% worldwide we would say are hardcore Talmudist, Zoharist, Kabbalist, whereas the other 15% out of that total of 30% worldwide also adhere to it, but they're not hardcore. But nonetheless, at least 30% of all Jews hold the Talmud as a sacred writing, as the oral law of God, and it's held in higher regard than the Bible itself. I know that some will try to play that down and say that's not true, but that is totally false. It is known by any Orthodox Jew that the Talmud has more preeminence than that of Moses or the prophets themselves.
What are some of the more shocking statements in the Talmud?
The shocking statements?
There are many.
There are many.
There are many. So
well, let me kind of clarify some of these ones that because they do get kind of misquoted a little bit, but it still holds true. Like for example, when it speaks about in the Talmud that a man, some people try to say that it condones a sexual relation or pedophilia between a man and a boy as long as he is under 9 years of age. They said it's not considered homosexuality. It doesn't really condone it, but what it does is that it minimizes the offense. So they write in the Talmud, and I forget if it's either 9 or 12 years old. I don't know. 9. It is 9 years old. Right. That if the boy is under 9 years of age, then it's not considered a homosexual act. That's actually written in the Talmud. And I have the entire Cincino Talmud on my bookshelf there in my office there. But the reason why they do this is because they know that the law of Moses would command that if you have a homosexuality, then that person is to be stoned. Mm-hmm. So they don't want the rabbis to be guilty if they end up getting caught. So they minimize it. Same thing with, they minimize if a little girl under the age of 3 years old, and it's depending on the rabbi, depends on whether it's 9 years old or 3 years old in the Talmud, would consider no different than if the girl were to be defiled as if you poked her in her eye. In other words, it'll just heal back. It's no big deal. Of course, Jesus himself, he's written about, they don't use his name, they normally use Balaam when it's written in the Talmud, but I can literally show you right in the Talmud, right in the notes there, where it says on there that Jesus, or that Balaam is a substitute in coded language in the Talmud for Jesus, and they say that he is in hell and boiling in feces, that type of thing there. Those are some of the more bold things that a lot of people are more aware of, but there are tons of things that people just would never.
Why are there so many American evangelical Zionists, pastors and Bible teachers, prophecy teachers? Why are there so many of them studying the Talmud?
This is
what would they get out of it?
What I see, sometimes I wonder, Rick, if it's just they're going in maybe with good intentions. Maybe they're excited, they're wanting to try to get closer to the Jewish people. But then there are others that are clearly, they are involved in this for an agenda to bring about an ecumenical movement that is going to put Christianity, the Christian people, underneath Talmudic rabbis. This is my biggest fear. And this is, in fact, even today, this is what is circling in the pulpits today. Many times, unbeknownst to the followers here, they're being taught Talmudic and Zohar prophecies, and the people have no idea that this is what they're being taught.
This is what Jesus, whose Hebrew name is Yahawasha, said to the assembly in Ephesus in Revelation 2-6, "But this thou hast, that thou hatest the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate." Then speaking to the assembly in Pergamum, he said in Revelation chapter 2, verse 15-16, "So hast thou also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate. Repent, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and will fight against them with the sword of my mouth." Now think about how serious and severe the Messiah was concerning the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. This was not something light. He said he hated their deeds and their doctrine. So we must ask the question, what was the doctrine of the Nicolaitans? According to Theopedia, the doctrine of the Nicolaitans appears to have been a form of antinomianism, the false belief that a person can freely continue in sin because the law of the Most High is no longer binding. In other words, they taught a dangerous form of just believe while rejecting obedience.
A lot of people are waking up now.
What do you think about this topic?
Please leave your comment in the comment section below. Please be nice. Please click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell to get notification for more videos in the future. Thank you for watching this video on the Berean Scholars channel.